former acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker is with us, along with the author of The Trial of the Century, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, and author of Get Trump bestseller, Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Matt, let me start with you. A cataclysmic event for Joe Biden. Explain.
Well, this is a game changer because, right now we've only seen the smoke. And, there's a lot of folks that believe Joe Biden and his entire family has profited immensely from his public service. But this would be concrete evidence that would point to actual bribery, actual payments from foreign governments to affect U.S. policy. And that, to me, is an absolute game changer, Sean.
All right. Let me ask you, Professor Dershowitz. You had said that the Republicans probably now have every right, even obligation, to open an impeachment hearing about this. Now, we know the FBI director has not been cooperating with James Comer's committee. We know now that he selectively redacted information that was pertinent and key, especially mentioning the possibility that there are 17 tapes held by a Burisma executive, 15 with Hunter, 2 with Joe Biden, as an insurance policy should something go wrong. I don't think you'd hold on to tapes unless they were incriminating. Do you?
Of course not. But we still have to apply the presumption of innocence, even in the context.
I agree. But I'd like to know why the FBI has not been cooperative.
No, they should be cooperative. And if there is evidence of bribery, that is an impeachable offense under the Constitution, unlike what Donald Trump was impeached for, which were not impeachable offenses. But there has to be transparency. That's why I also want the trial of Donald Trump to be televised. I think today's hearing should have been televised. We have to know how our justice system is operating. Half the country doesn't trust our justice system. And the idea that we have probably the most important trial in modern American history hidden from the public view will simply raise the question again, what do they have to hide? You talk about whataboutism. In my book, Get Trump, I have a whole chapter on whataboutism. It goes back. And it's not, you're right, it's not whataboutism. It's equal protection of the law. The special prosecutor said there's one law and it applies to everybody. But he was tasked only to target and investigate one person.
Well, Professor, let me ask you, though.
Yeah.
Was Hillary Clinton treated differently? When we just played James Comey, 110 emails, 52 email chains, 8 of the chains top secret, 36 secret, 8 confidential, but no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute. And may I add, that's only 30,000 emails. That does not include the 33,000, because he said in that very same speech, well, we weren't able to see any intent. Was there intent when Hillary Clinton used BleachBit to delete those emails? Was there intent to obstruct when they destroyed devices?
Of course, every case is different on its facts. That's why the special prosecutor should have been appointed.
But I'm asking a very specific question. Comey said that there was no intent.
No, I agree with you. That's why there should have been a comparative. They shouldn't have been assigned just to investigate one person. They should have investigated Hillary Clinton, should have investigated President Biden, should have investigated Pence, should have investigated Sandy Berger, and then come to an assessment, comparing the cases and comparing the facts. Then we'd be in a better position. But he had the chutzpah to get up and say, there's one law and it applies to everyone. Well, he wouldn't know that. He only investigated one person. He didn't investigate a problem. He investigated a person. And that's not consistent with the American approach to equal justice under law.
And Greg Jarrett, I mean, this is, if you look at the timing of this, that was July 2016. Comey made that statement. Again, not really addressing the 33,000 deleted emails. Where I grew up, I think we would call that obstruction. But that was the same point that they were launching what the Durham report said never should have been launched, and that's Operation Crossfire Hurricane. And as Durham pointed out, Hillary was treated to one standard and Donald Trump another standard. But he said very clearly that that investigation that dragged this country through hell for 3 years never, ever should have been opened by the FBI.
Absolutely.
Right. And in fact, as I pointed out in my book, 5 years ago, the very moment that James Comey was clearing Hillary Clinton, and he had no authority to do that, his FBI was actually meeting secretly, simultaneously in London with Christopher Steele, who was handing over the first section of his phony dossier. And of course, we now know that the investigation had no credible evidence. The FBI knew at the outset that it was all phony and made up, invented by Hillary Clinton. So you're seeing a dual system of justice here, selective prosecution. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton who wasn't prosecuted. You've got James Comey himself who wasn't prosecuted. He stole FBI documents when he was fired, one of which was classified, that he leaked to his own attorneys who were not cleared for that information. Was his home ever raided? Was he ever indicted for that? Of course he wasn't. Same thing with Bill Clinton. He had all of those tapes, as President Trump outlined in his speech tonight. Was his home raided? No, the Department of Justice defended Bill Clinton in front of a federal judge and said he has a right under the Presidential Records Act to have those documents, including classified material. So Trump's defense is going to be, they'll file several motions challenging the indictment. They'll argue that the governing law is the Presidential Records Act, which supplants a general statute such as the Espionage Act.
All right, last word, Matt Whitaker. We only have a second.
Yeah, well, this case is obviously a long way from, the end. But, I would just point out what Greg said there is so important because the case law is very much on President Trump's side.
All right. I appreciate all three of you being with us. Matt, thank you. Greg, thank you. Alan Dershowitz,